Hi. Well, first, Namo Buddhassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, and the rightly self-awakened One. Namo Buddhassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, and the rightly self-awakened One. Namo Buddhassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. And for a third time, homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, and the rightly self-awakened One. Okay, so here we are, back. I think we should be live. It looks like everything is ready, and also me. So this is another stream or a study of the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha. And so last time we left off going through the 62 wrong views. Excuse me. The 62 wrong views, and we got from 1 to 34, I'm pretty sure. And so that was kind of a study session of the first discourse or sutta, the Brahmajala Sutta, the Supreme Net, which is like the eye of the Buddha, the eye of the Dhamma, where the Buddha can look out through this Supreme Net, and he can kind of see who needs a blessing on that day. Okay, and so kind of the reason for this kind of, I don't know if it's called impromptu study session or group. I don't know how many of you are out there. Let me just get the chat out, by the way, if just in case there anyone out there having some questions or something like that. Okay, so the chat is on. So energy, Viriya, when there is not energy present in the mind of the meditator, the mind stops to investigate the objects of its attention, and it becomes lax and maybe drowsy and starts to slack off and just lean back, right? And so that mind is not really an energetic mind, which is useful for study and also to rouse joy. And this is kind of the energy we're talking about here is not really the energy that comes from drinking a soda or eating a lot of candy. It is a kind of energy that that comes from, actually it comes from not running away from kind of the problem or the things in the mind, because a lot of people seem to think that a meditation is some kind of a vacation where you, as I said before, lean back and relax and do nothing and just let your mind kind of unhinge for a while, which actually is the exact opposite of meditation as the Buddha taught it. So why is this opposite? it's because there's this lack of investigation. There's no, it's called like an impotent mindfulness or wrong mindfulness, because it does not actually it doesn't at any point culminate in confronting the problem so as to realize with insight, um, through understanding and with persistence, keeping with the object and sticking with it in the meditation, and not being distracted and letting the mind go this way and that way and everywhere else where it's not supposed to go. So that's a different kind of energy, as I said, than drinking a soda and staying up a few more hours. So this is the energy of the mind, kind of an energy that comes about when the mind becomes clear about kind of what is real, what is part of reality, and what is illusion and is mind-made. I think that's probably the best way I could describe it. And so, this understanding of meditation as being a vacation for the body and for the mind, it's time to relax. If you are stressed out, if you're working hard, you should go and meditate, which is true if you do it right. But if you do it wrong and just relax, you're not actually meditating, you're not getting anywhere. And so you shouldn't do that. Definitely not if you're stressed, because that's just gonna push your opportunities away, the ones right at hand, or the meditator's opportunities. It is neglecting actually the chance or the opportunity that we have. And so neglect is the opposite of appamada, which means heedfulness, or we're going to go with heedfulness in this case. And so I think I pretty much just gave a short, kind of a long description of what we are studying and why we are studying that, and how this new episode comes about. And so with that, here we go. The Digha Nikaya, where we left off in the previous episode. And I will make sure that there is a link to the first study in this video when it gets up on YouTube. So you can push that below if you haven't seen it, and if you want to check it out, make sure you can go check it out. So we're just going to be continuing with some reading. I don't know if we're going to be reading just as much as we did last time, because apparently my voice is a little bit crackling. Maybe I can have a little bit of hopefully that could help my voice a little bit. Otherwise, please excuse me for not having the most optimal, perfect, not that it have to be perfect, but a nice reading voice today. I think I did pretty alright last time. So yeah, here we are, page 83, what the teaching is not. Yep. wrong view 18. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this is where we're gonna start. And yeah, please get into a comfortable listening position, and I will try and be sitting also in a nice position for study, and also in a comfortable position so that I may remember this for a long time and not be distracted. And if I do get distracted, that I may catch my distraction while I am being distracted, so that it does not affect me should it arise. Okay, so the best way to probably read the Dhamma is to meditate while doing it, if you're able to, as well as when you're listening to it. Okay, so I think 11 minutes on the introduction today, that should be enough. We're just going to be reading. I think I'm going to turn this light on as we start off right now. And we're good to go. Okay, so last time we ended off at the end of second recitation section. And here we go, continuing on, right into the text. This is going to be interesting. And also, remember to be mindful and try to investigate how the mind becomes energetic from actually studying, from applying effort, using energy, you become energetic. In the same way that if you're tired, you could do walking meditation and wake up. Okay, so here we go. Let me try and sit in a nice, comfortable position that looks alright. Which should be maybe this. There are monks, some ascetics and Brahmins, who proclaim a doctrine of unconscious post-mortem survival, and they do so in 8 ways. On what basis? Wrong views 35 to 42. Excuse me. They declare that the self after death is healthy and unconscious, and 1 material, 2 immaterial, 3 both, 4 neither, 5 finite, 6 infinite, 7 both, 8 neither. Okay, so that was a little bit hard to just understand from the first here, with the footnote 68. That reads, the sub-commentary. The sub-commentary is helpful here. 1 is based on experience of the unconscious realm. See note 65. 2 takes perception to be the self. 3 takes the material or material and immaterial dhammas plus perception to be the self. 4 is based on reasoning. 5 through 8 are to be understood as at note 57. Okay, so going through them again. 1 is based on experience of the unconscious realm. 2 takes perception to be the self. 3 takes the material, rupa, or material and immaterial dhammas, rupa and arupa, plus perception to be the self. 4 is based on reasoning. 5 through 8 are to be understood as at note 57. What does that mean? These various views with the higher jhanas, obtained with the aid of the kasinas, colored discs, etc. Says 1. Without having extended the counterpart sign to the boundaries of the world sphere, he abides perceiving the world as finite. 2. But he who has extended the kasina image to the boundaries of the world sphere perceives the world to be infinite. So this is a description of the jhanas. Maybe we should read this. 3. Not extending the sign in the upwards and downwards direction, but extending it across. He perceives the world as finite in the upward and downward direction and as infinite across. So like a disk, or as the universe. And this is going through the jhanas, the kind of still the worldly jhanas. So it's not so juicy as we might have thought it was. But I could be wrong. Let me turn on some more light. That doesn't actually count as a distraction, I think. As much as me not watching my steps. Always watch your step. That's gonna be making you very, very happy. Very, very shortly. Okay. These are the 8 ways in which these ascetics and Brahmins proclaim a doctrine of unconscious post-mortem survival. There is no other way. This, monks, the Tathagata understands. These, monks, are those other matters, profound, hard to see, which the Tathagata, having realized them by his own super knowledge, proclaims, and about which those who would truthfully praise the Tathagata would rightly speak. There are some ascetics and Brahmins who declare a doctrine of neither conscious nor unconscious post-mortem survival, and they do so in 8 ways. On what basis? Wrong views, 43 through 50. Okay. So we're going through 8 wrong views, 43 through 50, and they go as follows. They declare that the self after death is healthy and neither conscious nor unconscious, and material, immaterial, 1, material, 2, immaterial, 3, both, 4, neither, 5, finite, 6, infinite, 7, both, and 8, neither, with 8 being the 50th wrong view. So they declare that self after death is healthy and neither conscious nor unconscious in these 8 ways. With the footnote 69. What does 69 say? 1 is based on a subtle perception incapable of performing this function at death and rebirth linking. 1 is based on a subtle perception. And the rest is as in 68. Okay. These are the 8 ways in which these ascetics and Brahmins proclaim a doctrine of neither conscious nor unconscious postmortem survival. There is no other way. This, monks, the Tathagata understands. These, monks, are those other matters, profound, hard to see, which the Tathagata, having realized them by his own super-knowledge, proclaims, and about which those who would truthfully praise the Tathagata would rightly speak. There are, monks, some ascetics and Brahmins who are annihilationists, who proclaim the annihilation, destruction, and non-existence of beings, and do so in 7 ways. On what basis? Here, a certain ascetic or Brahmin declares and holds the view, since the self is material, composed of the 4 great elements, the product of mother and father, at the breaking up of the body, is annihilated and perishes, and does not exist after death. This is the way in which this self is annihilated. That is how some proclaim the annihilation, destruction, and non-existence of beings. So we have 2 footnotes here, 70 and 71. Always just at least check them out a lot. Earth, Patawi, or extension. Water, Apo, or cohesion. Fire, Tejo, or temperature. Air, Vayu, or motion. The traditional names for the 4 qualities present in varying proportions in all matter. Okay, so we're getting to learn some Pali. In the Buddhist view, there is additionally required the presence of the Gandapa, or being to be born, i.e., the arising of a new continuity of consciousness, dependent on that of some being just deceased. And this was note 71, relating to the matter. How did they call it? The product of mother and father. Okay. Annihilationists. Non-existence of beings. Wrong view. 52. Another says to him, Sir, there is such self as you say. I don't deny it, but that self is not wholly annihilated, for there is another self, divine, material, belonging to the sense sphere, fed on real food. You don't know it or see it, but I do. It is this self that at the breaking up of the body perishes. Wow, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4 footnotes, 72 to 75. First one on the defining this self as divine. Dibba, Pali for divine, derived from the same stem as Dewa. Wow, now my voice is just really messing up a little bit. Maybe I should have made some tea. Trying to see. Longing to the sense sphere. 73. Kamma Vachara. Belonging to the sensual sphere. Kamaloka. The lowest of the three worlds. Real food. A footnote on real food. Pali. Kapalinkara hara. Kapalinkara hara. Generally means material food. Here, it denotes the kind of nutriment on which the lower devas subsists. Okay. Wow. So they actually eat real food. Like physical, material food. And so, this wrong viewer number 52 ends off with saying that he alone is one who can see this self, that which is the self that breaks up. Or which is the self that perishes at the breaking up. Wow. Okay, so that's really technical. Wrong view 53. Another says to him, "Sir, there is such a self as you say. I don't deny it, but that self is not wholly annihilated. For there is another self, divine, material, mind-made." I was using that word earlier. "Complete with all its parts, not defective in any sense organ. It is this self that at the breaking up of the body perishes." And we got just one footnote. 76. We're gonna look it up. It's a short one. Produced by the jhana mind. So now we're talking about this mind making, produced by the jhana mind. So these views are still based on some kind of jhanic experience, which is still foggy to the yogi or Brahmin or another, as they are referred here, and not clear and not understood and wrongly grasped. Okay, wrong view number 54. Another says to him, "Sir, there is such a self as you say. There is another self which, by passing entirely beyond bodily sensation, by the disappearance of all sense and resistance, and by non-attraction to the perception of diversity, seeing that space is infinite, has realized the sphere of infinite space. It is this self that at the breaking up of the body perishes." So this is another wrong view linked to the jhanas, the jhana experience of infinite space. 77. The next four correspond to the seventh liberations, or the four higher formless jhanas. Okay. Wrong view 55. And now we're getting close to the end. There's only 62. We're only half an hour in. Okay, hurry on along in a reasonable pace. Another says to him, "Sir, Wait a minute, we just had that one. 55. Wrong view 55. Another says to him, there is another self which, by passing entirely beyond the sphere of infinite space, seeing that consciousness is infinite, has realized the sphere of infinite consciousness. It is this self that at the breaking up of the body perishes. No footnote. Wrong you. Number 56. Another says to him, there is another self which, by passing entirely beyond the sphere of infinite consciousness, seeing that there is nothing, it actually says no thing, seeing that there is no thing, has realized the sphere of nothingness. And it actually says no thingness. So no thingness. That means nothing arises and the mind does not take an object beyond nothingness, which is an object. Or actually the lack of an object, which is also something. Like neglect is something in the sense of missing wisdom. Okay. No thingness. It is this self that at the breaking up of the body perishes. Wrong view. Number 57. Another says to him, such a self as you say, I don't deny it. But that self is not wholly annihilated, for there is another self which, by passing entirely beyond the sphere of no thingness, nothingness, and seeing, this is peaceful, this is sublime, has realized the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. You don't know it or see it, but I do. It is this self that at the breaking up of the body is annihilated and perishes and does not exist after death. This is the way in which the self is completely annihilated. That is how some proclaim the annihilation, destruction, and non-existence of beings. So now we have a mind that is not even perceiving nothing as its object. It has not taken an object. So this is pretty close to cessation, since it is the cessation of perception. And the arising, I kind of guess, of, or the non-arising of non-perception. There are the 7 ways in which these ascetics and Brahmins proclaim a doctrine of annihilation, destruction, and non-existence of beings. There is no other way. This, monks, the Tathagata understands. So this is about the jhanas, but none of these are still enlightened to the first degree or stage. So, this, monks, the Tathagata understands. These, monks, are those other matters, profound and hard to see, which the Tathagata, having realized them by his own super knowledge, proclaims, and about which those who would truthfully praise the Tathagata would rightly speak. There are monks, some ascetics and Brahmins, who are proclaimers of Nibbana here and now, and who proclaim Nibbana here and now for an existent being in 5 ways. On what grounds? So these guys proclaim Nibbana here and now for an existent being in 5 ways. So it is the proclamation of a being enlightened. So it's kind of vague, but in my understanding of it, having not read it before, it is the conception, or is it the conceiving of a self or a being that becomes enlightened, which in turn is the wrong view of self as like atta, a higher self again, just another form of an enlightened higher self that now maybe is enlightened. And so it is real self, as opposed before where it was false self. Let's see what this is all about. Proclaiming Nibbana. Wrong view number 58. Here, a certain ascetical Brahmin declares and holds the view, in as far as this self, being furnished and endowed with the 5-fold sense pleasure, indulges in them, then that is when the self realizes the highest Nibbana here and now. So some proclaim it. This is really bad. This is nothing like the other guys, which is also really bad because of the evil inherent in wrong views, and especially in clinging to them. So now we have to read footnote 78. This is not, of course, the real Nibbana of Buddhism. See the introduction, page 27, and as far as I remember, it is the what is it called? The section that is called Nibbana. Is it called versus Nirvana? No, it couldn't be called that. It is called probably something like Nibbana or Nirvana, which is the Pali and the Sanskrit for the same word but not the same meaning. Okay, and now DA says it means the subsiding of suffering, dukkha vupassama, in this very individual form, subsiding being something far short of cessation. So subsiding, not cessation. The new sub-commentary quoted by Bhikkhu Bodhi adds, it's not the supreme fruit and not the unconditioned element, asankata dhatu. The unconditioned element, asankata, unconditioned element, dhatu, which is nibbana. For these are beyond the domain of these theorists. And so these theorists, non-enlightened beings, to make a pun, they are theorists. They're not holy men. Wow. Let me drink a little bit of water. And I do apologize for my voice being so rusty. So, some proclaim it. Wrong view, number 59. 3 wrong views left. Another says to him, Sir, There is such a self, as you say. I don't deny it, but that is not where the self realizes the highest nibbana here and now. Why so? Because, sir, sense desires are impermanent, painful, and subject to change. And from their change and transformation there arise sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and distress. But when this self, detached from sense desires, detached from unwholesome states, enters and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and pondering, and the delight and happiness born of detachment, that is when the self realizes the highest nibbana here and now. So that's an interesting translation, and this guy is on to something. Listen what he has to say. Sir, there is such a self as you say. I don't deny it, but that is not where the self realizes the highest nibbana here and now. Why so? Because, sir, sense desires are impermanent, painful, and subject to change, and from their change and transformation there arise sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and distress. But when this self, detached from sense desires, detached from unwholesome states, enters and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and pondering, or investigation, pondering, contemplation, and the delight, the joy, the piti, the Dhamma-piti, the joy that comes from exerting energy, and happiness, born of detachment, or this is also sometimes translated as not solitary, what is it called? Solitude. Born of solitude. Yeah, detachment, solitude. That is when the self realizes the highest nibbana here and now. And I would say, since I cannot actually see what the Buddha continues to say, it just actually goes right on to wrong view 60. That this guy is right. Nibbana arises from the unprovoked, from the solitary bhikkhu investigating rightly with right mindfulness, and exertion in the practice, not being lax, and letting their taints run off with him. So I would say this wrong view is very, very close to being right view. So close that I might think that I hold this wrong view. Let's see. Wrong view 60. Another says to him, Sir, there is such a self, as you say, but that is not when the self attains nibbana. How so? Because on account of thinking and pondering, that state is considered gross. So thinking and pondering alone is a mundane undertaking, as opposed to investigation of the Dhammas, which was the translation I used. Anyways, it's considered gross. But when the self, by the subsiding of thinking and pondering, enters and abides in the second jhana, with the inner tranquility and oneness of mind, which is free from thinking and pondering, and is born of concentration, and accompanied by delight and joy. That is when the self realizes the highest nibbana. Okay, so I think we jumped over some footnotes on this previous one, which of course I want to read. 79 to 82, because let me read them. The various jhanas are mistaken for nibbana. Vipakka, vichara, otherwise rendered initial and sustained thought, kind of like investigation, very, very close. And the like. I am indebted to Ellis Cousins for the suggestion that I should adopt Venerable Nyanamoli's original rendering, Thinking and Pondering, altered by the editor. Oh, that was the previous page. Piti, a difficult word to translate. Renderings vary from interest through zest to rapture. It is classified not as a feeling, vedana, but as part of the group of mental formations, sankharas, i.e., as a mental reaction. So it is a reaction. Piti, Dhamma-piti, like reacting to the Dhamma. Of course it's a reaction. Digha says, it may be described psychologically as joyful interest, for which the simplest term would seem to be delight. So we're still at the 60, the first one, claiming the jhanas to be nibbana. Sukha. Sukha, pleasant feeling, physical or mental, though for the latter the word somanasa exists, mental. The difference between this and piti may seem subtle, but is important. Samadhi here has its basic meaning of concentration. Okay. So the first one, 60, which I said was right, that in vipakka vichara, I didn't actually say it was right, I said it sounded close to being right. I said he was on to something. That is kind of investigation, initial and sustained thought, which is translated by the Venerable Nyanamoli as thinking and pondering. And so the second guy says as follows. The second to last wrong view. Wrong view 61. Another says to him, Sir, there is such a self, as you say, but that is not when the self attains nibbana. How so? Because on account of the presence, so the excuse me for just stopping here, but the previous guy says that it is at the end of the peak of concentration that the mind is liberated to nibbana. And before that, the guy says it is at the peak of investigation, sustained investigation, continually. At the end of that, or at the peak of that, the mind attains to Nibbana. And now we have this, the third guy, saying, no, 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 that's not when. And how so? It is because on account of the presence of the delight, there is mental exhilaration, and that state is considered gross. But when the self, with the waning of delight, dwells in equanimity, mindful and clearly aware, experiencing in his own body that joy of which the noble ones say, happy dwells one who has equanimity and mindfulness, and so enters and abides in the third jhana. That is when the self realizes the highest nibbana here and now. The second to last wrong view. Come now to the last one, and I can understand why you haven't heard a comment from the Buddha yet, since these guys are essentially talking here about isn't this the brahmajalas, the dwelling of Brahma? It is, right? So this is what they're talking about. And the last wrong view, number 62. Another says to him, Sir, there is such a self as you say, I don't deny it, but that is not where the self experiences the highest nibbana here and now. Why so? Because the mind contains the idea of joy, and that state is considered gross, as a sankhara, I guess. But when the abandonment of pleasure and pain, when with the abandonment of pleasure and pain, with the disappearance of previous joy and grief, one enters and abides in a state beyond pleasure and pain, in the fourth jhana, which is purified by equanimity and mindfulness. That is where the self realizes the highest nibbana here and now. That is how some proclaim the highest nibbana here and now for an existent being. These are the 5 ways in which these ascetics and Brahmins proclaim a doctrine of nibbana here and now. There is no other way. Let me just grab this footnote. Vipakka, Smart Vipakka, Sampajana, not self-possessed. Vassa. This, monks, the Tathagata understands and then it is just cut off, but that is and the Buddha says that the Tathagata understands the destination of beings that cling to such wrong views as these 62 wrong views, and so forth. These are the 44 ways in which those ascetics and Brahmins who are speculators about the future, having fixed ideas about the future, put forward various speculative views about the future. There is no other way. This, monk, the Tathagata understands, and it is hard to see, and it is hard to understand. These are the 62 ways in which those ascetics and Brahmins who are speculators about the past, the future, or both, put forward views about these. There is no other way. This, monks, the Tathagata understands. These viewpoints thus grasped and adhered to will lead to such and such a destination in another world. This the Tathagata knows, and more, but he is not attached to that knowledge. And being thus unattached, he has experienced for himself perfect peace, and having truly understood the arising and passing away of feelings, their attraction and peril, and the deliverance from them, the Tathagata is liberated without remainder. So that is how the Tathagata, the Blessed Lord Buddha, indeed is liberated without remainder. Meaning not existing after the breakup of the body, and further meaning that none in existence whatsoever, now or in the future, will be able to ever contact or see the blessed Buddha Gautama again, since he has indeed passed into parinibbana, liberated without remainder. These monks are those other matters, profound, hard to see, hard to understand, peaceful, excellent, beyond mere thought, subtle, to be experienced by the wise, which the Tathagata, having realized them by his own super-knowledge, proclaims, and about which those who would truthfully praise the Tathagata would rightly speak. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So that's just beautiful. Yes, beautiful in the beginning and in the middle, and now finally in the end. And we have a little bit of conclusion here, going through the views. Okay, wrong views 1 to 4. Thus, monks, when those ascetics and Brahmins who are eternalists proclaim the eternity of the self and the world in 4 ways, that is merely the feeling of those who do not know and see, the worry and vacillation of those immersed in craving. Wrong views 5 through 8. When those who are partially eternalists and partially non-eternalists proclaim the partial eternity and the partial non-eternity of the self and the world in 4 ways, that is merely the feeling of those who do not know and see, based on feeling. And here we have the word of the Buddha. Wrong views 9 through 12. When those who are finitists and infinitists proclaim the finitude, and infinitude of the world on 4 grounds, that is merely the feeling of those who do not know and see. Wrong views 13 through 16. Maybe it's 2:16. No, it's through. When those who are eel wrigglers resort to evasive statements and wriggle like eels on 4 grounds, that is merely the feeling of those beings, chasing after feelings. Page 88. Wrong view 17 and 18. When those who are chance originationists proclaim the chance origin of the self and the world on two grounds. This is merely the feeling of those beings. It just says the feeling of those ones. That's to clear it out that I say that. Wrong views. 1 through 18. When those who are speculators about the past, having fixed views about the past, put forward various speculative theories about the past in 18 different ways. This is merely the feeling of those who do not know and see, the worry and vacillation of those immersed in craving. Wrong views 19 through 34. When those who proclaim a doctrine of conscious post-mortem survival do so in 16 different ways, that's merely feeling. Wrong view 35 through 42. And now we're just kind of going through them at the what we used to call this, like the blitzkrieg. Not that is so funny. It's just the Buddha likes to do this blitzkrieg. Just rounding them up. Okay, it's not really blitzkrieg. It's just something I heard from a while back. Wrong views 35 to 42. When those who proclaim a doctrine of unconscious postmortem survival do so in 8 different ways, that is merely the feeling. Wrong views 43 through 50. When those who proclaim a doctrine of neither consciousness nor unconsciousness, post-mortem survival, do so in 8 ways, that is merely the feeling. Wrong view 51 through 57. When those who are annihilationists proclaim the annihilation, destruction, and non-existence of beings in 7 ways, that's merely the feeling. When wrong views 58 through 62. When those who are proclaimers of Nibbana here and now proclaim Nibbana here and now for an existent being on 5 grounds, that is merely the feeling. Yeah. So it is still, the problem is that they're proclaiming a being to be enlightened. It doesn't matter if they say it is an investigating being, a concentrated being, a joyful being, or a equanimous being, because there is no being enlightened. That is again the misconception of self. When those so here he goes through wrong views 1 through 62. When those ascetics and Brahmins who are speculators about the past, the future, or both, having fixed views, put forward views in 62 different ways. So now he's just all of them, rounding them up. All of the views the Buddha says of. That is merely the feeling of those who do not know and see. The worry and vacillation of those immersed in craving. When those ascetics and Brahmins who are eternalists proclaim the eternity of the self and the world in 4 ways, that is conditioned by contact. At the footnote 86. So contact. Phassa is the contact between the sense base and its object. Example given, the eye and the visible object. Such contact is the basis of feeling. Okay, so we have the internal medium and the external medium being the eye, and then the external medium of the object or the sight. There's really just the seeing and the eye, which is the eye is the material and the seeing is the immaterial experience. There is actually no object being seen. That is a misconception of what is there, since the direct experience here in ultimate reality, Paramatta Satya, the ultimate truth of that experience is seeing, not seeing an object. Such contact is the basis of feeling. So some Brahmins say that there is an eternity of the self, and in the four ways is conditioned by contact. When those who are partly eternalists and partly non-eternalists, when those who are finitists and infinitists, when those who are ego-regulars, chance originators, who are speculators about the past in 18 ways, who proclaim a doctrine of conscious post-mortem survival, when those who proclaim a doctrine of unconscious post-mortem survival, those who proclaim a doctrine of neither conscious nor unconscious post-mortem survival, when those who are annihilationists, when those who are proclaimers of Nibbana here and now, when those who are speculators about the future, when those ascetics and Brahmins who are speculators about the past, the future, or both, having fixed views, put forward views in 62 different ways, that is conditioned by contact. That all of these eternalists and the rest should experience that feeling without contact is impossible. So based on feeling are all of these views. And that feeling is based on contact. That all of these eternalists and the rest should experience that feeling without contact is impossible. With regard to all of these, all of them, they experience these feelings by repeated contact through the six sense bases: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and thinking. Footnote 87. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body as a base of tactile sense, and mind, which is always the sixth sense in Buddhism. Mind, the mind which ponders, contemplates. With regard to all of these, they experience these feelings by repeated contact through the six sense bases. Feeling conditions craving. Craving conditions clinging. Clinging conditions becoming. And becoming conditions birth. Birth conditions aging. And death. Birth conditions aging and death. Sorrow, lamentation, sadness, and distress. Feeling conditions craving. Contact conditions feeling. contact. Is it ignorance that goes before that? To stress footnote 88. This is the first partial exposition of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, in the canon, and we touched on that in the introduction as well. It's a great introduction to this book. When a monk understands as they really are the arising and passing away of the 6 bases of contact, their attraction and peril, and the deliverance from them, he knows that which goes beyond all these views. Whatever ascetics and Brahmins or speculators about the past or the future or both, having fixed views on the matter and put forth speculative views about it, these are all trapped in the net with the 62 divisions, and wherever they emerge and try to get out, they are caught and held in this net. The supreme net. Just as a skilled fisherman or his apprentice might cover a small piece of water with a fine mesh net, thinking, whatever larger creatures there may be in this water, they are all trapped in the net, caught and held in the net. So it is with all these. They are trapped and caught in this net. In this net. Monks, the body of the Tathagata stands with the link that is bound to becoming cut. To becoming cut. Footnote 89. Turning another page. Let me read that again. Monks, the body of the Tathagata stands with the link that is bound. Stands with the link that bound it to becoming cut. All that formerly bound him, the Blessed Lord Buddha, to the cycle of rebirth. So here, the Buddha, in front of the monks, he shows them the net in which he himself had been caught before he awoke and got liberated. Truly, as long as the body subsists, devas and humans will see him. But at the breaking up of the body and the exhaustion of the lifespan, devas and humans will see him no more. Monks, just as when the stalk of a bunch of mangoes has been cut, all the mangoes on it go with it. Just so, the Tathagata's link with becoming has been cut. As long as the body subsists, devas and humans will see him. But at the breaking up of the body and the exhaustion of the lifespan, devas and humans will see him no more. As I was saying about the Buddha's passing to Parinibbana, that is really true. And now here we have the Blessed Lord Buddha's words right in our hands. and freshen our minds. That's the most important. At these words, the Venerable Ananda said to the Lord, "It is marvelous, Lord. It is wonderful. What is the name of this exposition of Dhamma?" Ananda. You may remember this exposition of Dhamma as the net of advantage, the net of Dhamma, the supreme net, the net of views, or as the incomparable victory in battle. Thus, let me just read footnote number 90. Atta. Atta. See note 21 and 22. Atta. Attawadi. Atta may also mean that which is profitable. Atta samhitang. Here, the meaning of atta as the profitable is clear. 90. Atta. Profitable. Ananda. You may remember this exposition of Dhamma as the net of advantage. Atta. Profit. The net of Dhamma, the supreme net, the net of views, or as the incomparable victory in battle. Thus the Lord spoke, and the monks rejoiced and were delighted at his words. And as this exposition was being proclaimed, the 10,000 world system shook. Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. Excuse me for my voice crackle. But how wonderful indeed. Thus the Lord spoke, and as the monks rejoiced in the Dhamma and were delighted at his words, and as this exposition was being proclaimed, the 10,000 world system shook. Samanapa. Wow. It is marvelous, Lord. It is wonderful. And now I should not miss my own very, very good opportunity to study, for this is actually part of the practice, more so than studying as we know it. But my practice was and is to investigate how it is that investigation itself rouses joy and energy, both now and later. And so, if you're feeling really, really tired and lazy. You should catch yourself being lazy and use it as a chance to exert effort, energy, Viriya, to strive rightfully by rousing the opposite wholesome quality to that of laziness and sorrow and lamentation. Neglect, the opposite of taking things serious, is neglecting things and neglecting oneself. And so, for right now, all I can say is how marvelous and how wonderful it is to rejoice in the words and the Dhamma of the Blessed Buddha, and how wonderful it is to feel this kind of energy in the, not so much in the body, as the body is very, very calm, but in the mind, being able to distinguish between real and illusion. And knowing the right time through understanding things as they are. Just from understanding this, what else could there be? And anything that arises when clung to or misconceived as self will bring suffering, dukkha, and anything misconceived and clung to has the characteristic of impermanence and being out of our control. Others not being able to make it as we want it to be, make it long or make it short, remember everything that we want to when we want to, and use the right words and not look back and think, I wish I had used other words, based on our inability to control anything really, even though it seems like we might sometimes be in control and we are healthy and we are young and all those good things which can take you away from the true path because they become a distraction and you get all caught up in it, thinking it is safety when it is not, caught all up in the net. I think we should call this episode The Unconquerable Victory in Battle. And finally, thank you so much for listening and for your attention and for picking up the practice and using it in daily life as many times as you can, catching as many raindrops or moments of mindfulness, catching anger when it arises, catching joy, catching frustration, catching a feeling of pain, catching being bored, saying bored, the mind state of being bored, wanting for something else, catching all of these things several times and doing it again and again, coming to see each object clearer and clearer. For every time mindfulness is applied to the arising phenomena, thus creating understanding of the arisen phenomena. And much deeper than that. So thank you so much, and may you have a blessed day, and may the triple gem bless you. May you be happy, safe, and find true peace, lasting happiness, and freedom from suffering. And may all beings be happy. Thank you. And let's do an outro, and then we're going to end this episode. So it's going to be pretty much as long as the previous one. And so here we go. Thank you so much. And that was the Brahmajala Sutta. It's the supreme net, or the unconquerable victory in battle. Namo Buddhassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vecha Charana Sampano Sukhato Lokavido Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Satate Vamano Sanang Buddho Bhagavati. Sadhu. That was a Buddha Vandana. Should we do a Dhamma Vandana as well? Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanpitiko Akaliko Ehi Pasiko Upanayeko Pachatang Veti Tapo Vinyo Iti. Sadhu. And the greatest and most heartfelt thank you and deep appreciation to the whole of the Sangha as well. And that's just in English. And that's all for this time. Peace. Now is a good time to do meditation. Do lots of meditation. And meditate on the joy and peace and tranquility, not neglecting these possible new phenomena arising in the body and in the mind. Sadhu.